70 years means that anyone who survived is at least 70 years plus whatever that age they were. So that means that the average survivor who tells their story is about 83. Those are the people who've had the opportunity, if they have been blessed not only to survive, but also to be able to gather their recollections and tell their story. Tonight, with the recognition that those people, if they were 83 now, were only 13 at the time that the war ended. Only 10 or 9 or maybe 8 at the time that they were ripped away from their family, or their family was taken with them to the camps, or they went into hiding, or otherwise their world was turned upside down. So we wanted to look at the stories and the memory of the Holocaust through the eyes of children. This year there was a special exhibit at Yad Vashem. Yad Vashem is the memorial, the museum in Israel that tells the stories of the survivors and those who were murdered, tells the story of the Holocaust. Its purpose is very simple, and you all know what it is. Never forget, never again. So that we remember the stories and we dedicate ourselves to know that what happened can never happen again. They also had an exhibit this year on the children. And some amazing stories are told, and I wanted to share with you just a snippet of one of the stories by a man named Eliyahu Raziel. He changed his name to Raziel when he survived and came to live in the land of Israel, in the state of Israel. His name was Rodjael when he was in Poland. His family was taken from him. All of these stories are, of course, stories of sadness. But they also are stories of the life that these kids were able to make for themselves. And he survived in the forest by himself. And he turned 13, living alone in the forest. Do you know what he did? What do you think he did when he turned 13? He had a bar mitzvah. He didn't have a bar mitzvah like anybody here. He made for himself in the forest. While he was hiding, he found a little place, and he took the time to dig the walls of his own little synagogue. And he put these sticks around so that he had his own little synagogue for himself. And then he took straps that he made out of the leaves or out of maybe the old straps that he could find, and he used them as if he was putting on the straps of tefillin, the straps that a boy at that time would put on when he became a bar mitzvah, when he was old enough to wear the words of the Torah on his arm and on his head. And then he sang from memory the words of the Haftarah. There was nobody to listen to him, nobody to give him a blessing, nobody to tell them that he did a great job, nobody to do anything other than for him to know that he was still alive, still a Jew, still celebrating what it meant to have a bar mitzvah. And he survived to tell this story. There is actually a video you can find. It's not actually, of course, of him, but it's an animated video that someone made. And if you want to Google, you should do it when you get home, Eliyahu Raziel and bar mitzvah, you'll see on Vimeo an animated picture that someone made for Yad Vashem of what it was like to create this space. And I don't know what he sang for his Haftarah, but on the video, I recognize the words that were sung were from the prophet Ezekiel, a prophecy. We actually read it, would read it during Passover on Saturday, called The Dry Bones. The prophet Ezekiel is shown a valley of bones, and the bones are not only of dead people, but dried out. And they say, Avda tikvatenu, we have lost our hope. And God says to Ezekiel, can I put life into these bones? And Ezekiel, who knows how to answer a question, says, only you know, God. And God says, I will breathe life into these bones. And Ezekiel has a vision of the bones standing, and sinews and flesh and bodies around them, and they get up and together they go to the promised land. Avda tikvatenu. We have lost our hope. Does that ring a bell for anybody? Od lo avda tikvatenu. Od lo avda tikvatenu. We have still not lost our hope, is a line from Hatikva. When they wrote Hatikva, what they were saying is, with all of the destruction, we have not lost our hope. But what puts the flesh on these bones are the stories. What makes us not lose hope are telling the stories. Yes, they're sad stories. Every one of them, because of how we're telling them, has sadness. But they're also about life. That if people can live under any terrible time and tell each other stories and play games and have their own bar mitzvah with no one around, it shows that there is nothing that can take our spirit away. At the end of our service, we'll sing the hope, because we still have these stories and we still sing the hope. There is a beautiful saying that says, Ha'olam kayam behevel tinokot beit haraban. The world stands on the breath of school children. What is the breath that keeps putting life in? It's our breath, especially our kids, who don't lose hope, who don't lose sight of what it means to be alive, what it means to be Jewish, what it means to remember. And as long as there's breath in us, there's breath in our people.